Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome to our coffee times together. Today, premiering my very new mug. I do own too many mugs and I keep seeing mugs that I want, and normally I'm able to resist them. However, I just could not pass this one because apart from saying bitching, which love it, it is big. And you know, when it comes to coffee, size is important. Anyway, you guys, in this video we're going to be checking out like a couple of films that I bought for myself and some really cool horror steelbook movie editions that I got for my birthday.
It's coffee time.
First, I have two DVDs that I got. I don't get so many DVDs anymore. However, I did find this one in a secondhand store and I've always really enjoyed this film. You can call it guilty pleasure or maybe this movie is underrated, but I actually dig it. And I've always loved this cover edition of this DVD, so I had to get it, and that is Fearcom from 2002. Like I said, I don't know if it's just me, but I actually really did enjoy this film, even though it has such bad reviews. And a lot of people are saying, oh, this is the worst film ever, stuff like that. I actually did like it. It's a horror film directed by William Malone and starring Stephen Dorff, Natasha McElhone, and Stephen Rea. So in the film, we are following a detective that is kind of investigating some murders that have happened, and they all have something in common, which is all the victims had visited the website called Fear.com before their death, and so they start digging deeper into this dark web, into this kind of website, and they are kind of trying to chase the murderer. I don't know, I really liked it, like I said, so it might be, you know, something that only I enjoy. I don't know. I would really like to know specifically for this one what you guys think, because I feel a little bit like I'm alone on this one. I feel like this is a very unpopular opinion, but I really did enjoy this film. Next, we have a DVD that is actually, I think, the third or the fourth installment in a series that I'm trying to collect, and I think these ones are only available in DVD, so when I saw this one I decided to grab it, and that is Tommy Rebirth, and these films are based on Junji Ito's works. If you're not familiar with him, he does a lot of like graphic novels that are extremely disturbing and gory. It is a 2001 Japanese horror film directed by Takashi Shimizu, based on a manga of the same name by Junji Ito. The main story is basically a revenge film. We have here somebody that has been murdered and their evil spirit comes back to take revenge on those that were trying to cover up this murder. So it's kind of like a revenge story, but I really do enjoy Asian horror, as you know. I really like Junji Ito's work, and this film series was recommended to me. I still need to get my hands on all the other ones so that I can make, you know, like a binge marathon of it all. But because I found this one, I already wanted to show it to you guys. We're moving now to Blu-rays, and actually I was super lucky that I found at a secondhand store another film that I wanted to get, and that is The Taking of Deborah, Logan from 2014. I've heard really good things about this film. It is a found footage film that it's supposed to be really disturbing, so I'm here for it. This American supernatural horror film, it's a feature film directorial debut of Adam Robitel. Set in Virginia, this follows a documentary crew that are making a documentary about patients that are suffering Alzheimer's, and it follows this woman that has Alzheimer's and her daughter, and apparently a lot of dark things are being discovered while they're filming this documentary. I'm really intrigued about this because I do love horror movies that are trying to bring something new to the table, like using everyday horror like Alzheimer's, which is an illness that is really frightening, and putting it in a horror context. And I do like found footage films if they're well done, so this is one that I have actually high hopes for. The other film that I picked up in Blu-ray, also at a second-hand store, is a film that I didn't really know much of, but it also has to do with mental illness, in this case a mental institution, and that is The Institute. an American horror thriller film co-directed by Pamela Romanovsky and James Franco, and it is based on a true story of a young girl's treatment at the Rosewood Institute in Mills, Maryland. It is also based on true events, and it follows the story of Isabel in 1893 when her parents died and she decided to check herself into the Rosewood institution, and apparently there was a lot of experiments that were performed on her. So it has to deal with, you know, these kind of institutions, how do they treat their patients, the experiments, what they want to achieve with that. So it's something that I'm extremely interested about, and it's also based on a true story, which I have to admit I'm a sucker for movies that say, oh, based on a true story. Like, I'm there to check it out, even if the you know, the events that they depict are not so accurate to the real case that they had, but I'm always like super intrigued to know about these stories, and normally I also check out documentaries about the real thing. If I have time before going into the movie and latest after the movie, I will check it out because I want to kind of compare the real events, the real truth, or what we know and suppose it's true, because, you know, there's always two sides of every story, but that's why I always love to check these movies out. And before we go to my birthday presents, the last thing that I have to show you that I purchased myself is a steelbook edition of a horror movie that I also found at a secondhand store, and that is 31 by Rob Zombie. In the film, 5 carnival workers are kidnapped the night before Halloween and held hostage in a large compound. So for the next 12 hours, they will have to play a life or death game called 31 that they are being forced to play. If you like Rob Zombie, you might enjoy this film, but as you know, he has a very particular vision of horror, so it is definitely not for everybody. I find that for me, some of his movies are a hit and others are a miss, so for me it's kind of like depending on the film, but I do appreciate that he's trying to do something a little bit different with his films. Alright, so now let's go to the 5 horror movies that I got in Steelbook edition for my birthday. I'm so thankful for them. You know, guys, when I started buying horror movies, I didn't care so much about the edition, to be honest, even though I've always been kind of a collector in general, as you can see from my background. But at some point I decided that, you know, if a horror movie was available in Steelbook or Mediabook or something a bit nicer, I would always try to get that edition so that I could make my collection extra special. However, by the time I made that decision, of course, a lot of horror movies were completely sold out in Steelbook and they were hard to get and really pricey. So there was a couple of movies that I wanted to add to the collection that I couldn't find for a reasonable price anymore. And 2 of them I actually got for my birthday this year, so I am super happy, and those are the ones that I'm going to show you first. Let's start with The Conjuring. So I've been meaning to get a steelbook edition of this film for the longest time. I never even purchased it because I was waiting to get the steelbook, and this is an FYE exclusive, so I believe this copy comes from the US because we don't have those type of stores over here. But I absolutely love this cover, and this is an American supernatural horror film directed by James Wan from 2013. As you guys know, this is the film that kind of started the whole Conjuring franchise that has now built up to spin-offs and everything, and hopefully we're gonna get part 3 soon, maybe this year still, we shall see. But this is basically following the characters of Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as they are portraying Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were kind of private supernatural investigators that people used to call when they thought that something in their house or somebody in their family was being hunted. This cover is absolutely stunning because it is simple but super effective, and I love that the back is showing Annabelle because she is a big part of this franchise. If we open it, we can see Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga as Ed and Lorraine Warren, and using one of their machines to kind of find some supernatural forces. And the second one is obviously The Conjuring 2. I've been meaning to get these films for the longest time, but I wanted to get them in steelbook, and I'm glad that I have them now. I also love that this cover, as well as for The Conjuring 1, is sort of simple. It's just showing a room, but it has so much atmosphere to it. And on the back we find Balak, a character that inspired the spin-off of The Nun. In this second installment from 2016, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga reprised their roles as paranormal investigators and authors Ed and Lorraine Warren. In this film, Ed and Lorraine Warren travel to the UK to help a family that is struggling with a supernatural creature that is kind of haunting their home. I actually really like both Conjuring films, and I cannot wait to see what they did with the third one. Next, and kind of following the Conjuring universe, basically, we have Annabelle. So I did have Annabelle 2 and 3 in Steelbook, but I was still missing part 1. So I am stoked to finally have it, since this is and remains still my favorite of the 3, even though I know that a lot of people do prefer part 2. I'm still sticking to the first one. It is an American supernatural horror film from 2014, and it is a prequel to 2013's The Conjuring and the second installment in the Conjuring universe franchise. As you can see, this is also an FYE exclusive steelbook, and it makes sense that they started the spin-offs of The Conjuring with Annabelle, since this case of the doll was one of the most famous, well-known popular cases that Ed and Lorraine Warren had. I really did enjoy the first installment, where we basically follow a young married couple, and the woman loves dolls, so the husband wants to make something nice for her, so he gets her this special doll, Annabelle, and little do they know that that decision is going to haunt them forever and it's gonna follow them everywhere they go. There is no escape from Annabelle. Like I said, this was my favorite part of the 3 Annabelle movies that we have so far, and actually, as weak as the last one was, I don't think we're gonna get a part 4. I do think it's not really necessary at this point. I really love this cover that shows Annabelle here on the front, and on the back we can see one of the scenes from the film when one of the characters goes down to the basement, and on the back they're keeping it simple but classy. And on the inside we basically have a picture of Annabelle. Now let's go to the last 2 steelbooks that I got for my birthday, and they are both movies that were released in 2019. The first one is Us by Jordan Peele. So this film was one of my favorites from last year. I absolutely love it, and I received this beautiful copy in 4K of the film, and this cover is so simple but I freaking love it. And the movie was amazing. I do have a video commenting also on some spoiler parts that are at the end of the video, so you can still check it out if you have not seen it yet. I really love this movie. I absolutely loved Get Out, but I personally prefer Us. Even though both are fantastic masterpieces, I really like Jordan Peele's work, and I cannot wait to see Candyman. In the film, we follow Lupita Nyong'o's character called Adelaide, that when she was a kid, she went with her parents in the 80s to Santa Cruz Beach, and she entered alone by herself a fun house. And she had a really weird experience in there with the mirrors, and that experience has been haunting her for a long time, and she has never wanted to return to the Santa Cruz Beach or to the house that her parents still have there. Until one day she is convinced by her husband and the kids to go there for the summer, and she starts to revisit the demons of her past, and everything changes one night when a set of doppelgangers are coming to visit the family. Like I said, I absolutely love this cover because it's simple, but it has so much meaning, especially after you have watched the film. And the back is also stunning, and it's also kind of playing with that doppelganger theme that we have throughout the film. On the inside we find both Blu-rays, one 4K, one the regular version, and we find a picture of the family, and down here we find the picture of the doppelgangers. I absolutely love this mirror image, which again takes us back to the fun house and the mirrors. And the last movie that I have to show you, it's actually my favorite of this bunch, and that is Dr. Sleep. And the reason being is that I really enjoyed this movie, even though it's a very slow burn film and not something that you might expect from Stephen King perhaps, because it has a totally different vibe that The Shining had, even though this is the sequel to The Shining and it is based on the book by Stephen King, Dr. Sleep, but it also serves as a direct sequel to Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining. So this film did came out in Germany as a steelbook, but the cover was a little bit boring. I'm gonna put a picture here so you can see it. I mean, nothing wrong with that cover, but the problem is that I had seen this cover already. So I fell in love with it and I really wanted it, and I had seen it mostly in the US, even though I believe this copy that I got for my birthday, I believe this one is from France. Absolutely stunning cover, so I had to get this one. Like I said, this is a sequel to The Shining, so we are following an adult version of Danny Torrance, played by Ewan McGregor, who is for me a very underrated, amazing actor. And he, since we met him in The Shining, has gotten older, had an alcohol problem, and suddenly he has to change his life for the better, because a little girl that also has The Shining is reaching out to him to help her. I really did enjoy this movie, but do not expect anything like your typical horror film of jump scares and, you know, gore and slasher, anything. It's nothing like that, but it is such a wonderful exploration of character, and it is pretty faithful to the book, as well as works so well as a sequel to Kubrick's film. So if you love The Shining in any way, book or film form, I think you will enjoy this one, to be able to follow the story of Danny Torrance when he's older. In the cover we see the adult version of Danny Torrance, played by Ewan McGregor, and we can see in the middle the little Danny Torrance going through the hallways of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining with his little tricycle. On the back they have kept it fairly simple. It just says Redrum. On the back we can see the adult Danny Torrance staring at the wall that it's trying to communicate with him. Since this is a special edition, we have the regular Blu-ray. We also have the director's cut Blu-ray, and we have the Ultra HD 4K version. Alright you guys, so these are the last movies that I have added to my own collection. If you do collect movies yourself, which are the last ones that you have purchased, let me know in the comments. And if you do not buy any physical copies, what is the last film that you have checked that you think it's worth checking out? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching you guys. As always, please give the video a big thumbs up. It really supports the channel. And if you want to follow me on the social media, as always the links are down below. And I hope to see you all in another bitching coffee time. Bye!